Hello, everyone. My name is Tracy. I'm an oncology nurse and have some personal connections to Scamanda, and I'm so excited tonight to have Nancy Muscatello back. She is the woman behind it all who has been following Amanda after she received a tip and then followed her for years before Amanda was charged with fraud. And we have a very whom I also love. And you are all going to freak out when you see who it is. Hello, Nancy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling
You think
good.
we can connect now?
Yes. Okay, so now we just have to wait for our super secret surprise guest to join. Oh, okay. I'm feeling very good. Let's see.
Hey!
Oh, yay! I'm so excited. Our special guest tonight is none other than Lisa Berry, the original tipster. And let me just tell you, for years, I racking my brain trying to figure out who knew she was lying about cancer for sure. And for years in my mind, I kept saying, it has to be a nurse. There's no way it cannot be a nurse. No one can be certain that she does not have cancer unless they viewed her medical records. So, Lisa, can you fill in the blanks and tell us how you were so sure that you knew that Amanda did not have cancer and was lying to everybody she knew that she had cancer when she did not?
Well, as you know, that I knew her years before. I met her in 2010 when she had cancer, in 2011 when she was terminal. So, and our relationship ended at that point. I ended that relationship, and fortunately, she and Corey had moved months before that to far across town, probably half an hour drive. And so we were not in the same community any longer. And fast forward to, I think, 2015, when,
5 years later. Oh
well,
my gosh. Okay.
4 years later, because 2011 is when I ended the relationship.
Okay.
And I got an email from a young lady who went to the church who I had met one time. And at my house, and I guess she was sending a message to all of her contacts in her address book, and I got this email about this poor dying woman who was just she was just the most incredible person. And there's this Chili's fundraiser, and lo and behold, it's Amanda Riley, and she's still alive.
Was there any part of you that thought, oh my gosh, she really does have
No,
cancer? Or no, you
no,
were.
no.
That at that point, yeah. Or I think Lisa, go back to for when you the little bits of the crumbs, so to speak. I know we talked a lot on episode 2 about the swimming underwater and that little band-aid, which is just a favorite story of mine because I know, Lisa has this. She's like, where? No one uses those band-aids. Like, it just set her off. But
Even my daughter said, "Mommy, can the pool water get into her brain?"
so I know we laugh about it now, but at that point, like that was the kind of where your wheels were going, wait, something's not right. And I think people, if they listen to the podcast, they may know a little bit more. She started kind of asking different questions or going back in things that were discussed in the past. And there's a couple of stories that stick out to me. There's the PhD story, which go ahead, Lisa, share that.
Well, she told me that she was working on her PhD at Stanford, and but then she never followed it up with anything. Like, she never talked about how it's really rough managing school with my marriage. I've got this job, I've got this child. She didn't ever seem to be going to school. So she's never talking about
Yeah.
it.
And that's
And
one
it
of the
just,
things that Lisa, I don't mean to interrupt, like when she reached out to me and the more we talked, the more she would, say, oh, and then, she told me about this PhD. And so I was taking notes and kind of thinking PhD. And lo and behold, now trying to fact check that or look into it, I found a post from Rebecca Cafiro, who was featured in the doc as someone who's donated quite a bit and took all those pictures of Amanda over the years. And there was a picture of Amanda with her pretty bald head, like a little grown in, at the Stanford campus, and a photo from Rebecca that she says, this incredible woman, she's fighting cancer, she has a young baby, and she's pursuing her PhD
I
at
saw that.
Stanford.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I remember saying to Lisa, okay, you just told me that, I was able to find things that she was told years before, you know.
That means that Amanda and Rebecca drove to Palo Alto, parked and went onto the Stanford campus. And that, to me, that's the whole part where I believe to this day, she would say, there's more to the story. I really am ill. Just kind of the details got miscommunicated is
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I feel like how she would explain it away. But like driving to Palo Alto, bringing your friend to this campus and saying, here's where I go to school, take a picture of me, and then posting it. And then her on stage at the church. That is the most visual. Like, that gets me back every time when she says, I was diagnosed. The doctor said you have stage 3 blood cancer.
Yeah.
It's like, that could not be any more black and white. You are lying.
Yeah.
There's no miscommunication. That did not happen.
Yeah. And Lisa shared too, because I like going through all the little things that you picked up on, that kind of put you over the top of like, wait a minute. I know another one was should we go right to Lindsay Lohan? Is that,
Sure. She grew up with Lindsay Lohan. They went to auditions together. They were in dance together,
Oh.
and they went to auditions. There were a couple of things that were really easy to confirm were lies, and I didn't do it initially. I sort of believed her, I guess, because they're around the same age, but it's easy to think that she went to the same school with Lindsay Lohan because it's close to Los Angeles, but it's easy to just take a look about Lindsay Lohan and find out that she grew up in New York. So that was when I decided to really start looking into the things that stuck with me that didn't make sense. That was easy to confirm.
yeah.
It was
And
easy. Yeah.
that was one of the things she told me early on. And I just thought, oh, that's odd. And it wasn't really, it kind of got filed away in the back of my mind. And then as I spoke with other people, I heard that story several times in different fashions. That was something that Alita and her sister were told, and that Lindsay Lohan grew up with her, and they were very good friends. And Lindsay Lohan called one of the kids for their birthdays.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. That's
And
right. I
then
remember now.
and then recently, I mean, it came up several times, and then very recently, someone reached out to me. Nothing about, they wouldn't know left or right about the Lindsay Lohan story because it wasn't something we really discussed on either thing. And they said, yeah, it was so strange. I mean, she used to tell me all about her friendship with Lindsay Lohan. I was just like, this is so there. There was these little things that Lisa was able to kind of talk about to me. And I'd take my notes, and then I could see as time went on, those things I could fact check. Strange enough, So I really found that interesting. I mean, that it was another thing that was kind
Well,
of
usually when there's a big fat lie, there's always a really long drawn out story behind this lie. I mean, it was, except for the PhD, but like her house that the house that she had, Corey, the one that you keep showing in the docuseries, that actually was their house that they moved to. They moved to there shortly after we met them, after probably within 2 months. We were friends with them for a solid year, very good friends with them for a solid year. So about 2-3 months in, they moved to that house. It seems like around that point. And she gave me this long tale of how she ended up getting the house with the help of her parents, that uh, that this poor woman, she was losing the house because they think she was ill, she was going through divorce, this whole story. And they were able to get the house. I don't know if it was in foreclosure or whatever it was. Well, those are easy records to check online. It could see that the house sold last time in 1985, and there was the Craigslist rental announcement still on Craigslist for that property. So it wasn't just like, oh, we moved here, oh, we bought this house. No, there's this really long story behind how they bought this house.
Where was that house? Where is that they keep showing?
Almadon, am I saying that right?
Almaden,
Oh,
yes,
Almaden.
Yeah,
deep Almaden, pretty far
yeah,
out there, off of Almaden Expressway, down at the end.
yeah. And another funny thing with that too is, again, this is early on. Lisa's telling me these different things and how she caught on to all this. And as I got further into my research, that house, the idea that they owned it, and that this was their house, was in the custody papers. It was a whole thing on how they bought this house, so they were the better parents for Jessa. They had a more stable environment. They owned this home, and I have the transcripts from court where Alita, again, not connected to Lisa, was able to show that same thing. They don't own this house. He is lying to the courts. He is lying about this house. And that, it was just another thing that early on that Lisa told me, that when you fast forward the months that I was researching, lo and behold, there that house was again, and it was in that same type of context. So
She's so sure about her lies, and then when she gets cornered, she like doubles down. I mean, I do you think she's a compulsive liar? Is there, I feel like a lot of people not make an excuse for it, but they'll say like, "Oh, she must have a mental illness that explains this."
Well, first of all,
you know,
I just want to say I don't care if my friends rent their house or if they own their house. I didn't care. I mean, she didn't have to impress me with that. I liked her, so it doesn't matter. But I think she wants to impress people. And I think, PhD at Stanford,
yeah.
all these, Lindsay Lohan's her friend, that sort of thing.
Good friend.
Very good friend. They grew up together. They went to dance together. They auditioned together. And Lindsay Lohan got the role. I think she was on that same audition, if I recall.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but it's that behavior that you maybe wouldn't pick up on unless all the stuff starts piling up.
Is that what did it for you, Lisa? Like, at what point were you thinking she is definitely lying about having cancer? What?
Well, when she swam underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you were already feeling suspicious before the brain
I
drain.
was suspicious of some things. Well, I got suspicious when before she swam underwater. That was, they were at our home. They came to pick up Jessa together, and she asked me if she could borrow money for a blood test to save her life. And her excuse, what she said is, my parents want to pay for it, but they can pay you back next week. And I just thought, well, my gut feeling was, well, she has insurance that would cover it. If her parents really want to pay for it, they could call and give their credit card. He's pacing behind. I mean, they did a great job of that scene in the docuseries. He's pacing and she's like hitting me up for the money. And it didn't make sense to me, but I wrote the check anyway and gave it to them. And then when she swam underwater, a couple days later, right after I gave her the money, she's posting glamorous pictures of herself online with a professional photographer who had taken these photographs. And they were, quite artistic.
There was a butterfly on her face, right?
I think there was a butterfly on her face. I just think it was one of those kind of like little glittery and all that kind of stuff. And she's posing. It wasn't that she went to a Glamour Shots place. She literally had a photographer, and she was saying who he was. So
I tried
Um,
Very hard to
and
find.
I
You
thought,
find
okay,
those.
Oh,
well,
you couldn't find those?
so I saw those pictures and I said, well, that's where my money went. I think that's where my money went, was for these pictures. My gut feeling. I mean, I knew when she asked me, the way she asked me was very odd, and with her husband pacing and all. But when I saw the glamour shots a couple days later, okay, all right, I think I paid for those. And
Wait, at that
then
point,
she
did she
swims
already say she
underwater.
had cancer?
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
was she, okay,
Yeah.
was she telling publicly that I bet she thought the photographer would comp her
I
photos.
don't know if
And
No,
then
she
when
she was
they,
wasn't.
telling
No, she
other
wasn't
people.
public at that point.
She was no, she was only public in 2012. Remember, that's
oh,
after she had the first
Yeah.
baby.
okay.
But that first baby, who she was pregnant, who she had, who she found out after she had the baby,
Mhm.
was the exact same baby that was in her womb when that was the cancer was being reversed because of this baby.
But then she says, I mean, it's very, she's, in some ways, she's a good writer. And in the whole, the doc, like I had heart failure after my last baby. So it's a way, in a lot of the ways that she speaks, you kind of have either know of someone with cancer, or it's hard to say that I don't want to say she's a good writer, but there's something that resonates with people. Like when I saw it, it gave me chills when she said the baby was okay, but I was not. And that, struck a
Yeah.
chord with me. And I was like, I can relate to that. That's something similar happened to me. And I think that it seems like with a lot of her main victims, is what I'll call, had a very intimate and personal relationship with cancer.
Yeah.
Everybody that was really giving to her had really experienced tremendous loss from cancer. So
Yeah.
she did a good job of like bringing people in with the
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole piece.
And
Especially my husband, who
yeah.
lost his first wife after an 8-year battle. Imagine that. And they took advantage of that. And my husband was so good to Corey, and he felt so bad. And he even said, Lisa, I'm going to have to be there for him. This is going to be really hard. I know how hard it is. I don't think he realizes it yet. I mean, Steve was really good to him, very, very good to Corey. And he felt really bad. And that for me was really, really upsetting that
Oh, yeah.
they took advantage of my husband after what he went through, and they
And
knew it,
knowing it. And knowing it. Sure.
and they tailored their little story just as for that, with Corey, bonding with Steve, like, we're going to be the same, we're in the same boat, you know what I mean?
That was something that I don't feel like there's even a way to put to words, where the GoFundMe money is one thing, $100,000, and Mahasti talks about the babysitting and the driving in the middle of the night feeling stressed. There's this emotional abuse, the way that she targeted people, the ways that she took money out. And it wasn't just about getting the money, because stories like exactly what you said of Corey saying that to Steve, which your husband is the most wonderful, loving, lovely man. I absolutely adore Steve. And the thought that Corey would specifically say, like, you're going to help me through this, is sickening to me.
Well,
And it's
Steve said, I'm
extra.
going to help you through it. Steve said he's going to help him through it.
But that Corey wouldn't stop it at that point.
Uh,
Like, you got to go home and say, gosh, that was really awful what I just did.
Well, after we ended the relationship, Corey actually, can I tell this story about
Yeah.
Corey calling?
Yeah.
Corey actually called after I accused Amanda of faking cancer. He called Steve the very next day and left him a message, because Steve didn't take his call, and said, hey, I'm really sorry about what happened, and sorry you guys feel that way, but I still want to be friends. I'd still love to like get together with you and have a beer.
And,
He said,
yeah,
he said that
Lisa and
to
I have
Steve.
talked about this. Like, that was his wife was just told by this
Yeah.
man's wife, you don't have cancer. We want nothing to do with you. You're lying. You're lying about having cancer. And he's like, I'm sorry about that. Can we just go get a beer?
Yeah, I'm sorry you guys feel that way.
Yeah.
And then I kept getting Evites to their parties for 6 months at least to their little gatherings. And at that time, they didn't have many RSVPs. So I was surprised to see they went from like no RSVPs, including Corey's birthday party. I'd never responded, but I did look. And Corey's birthday party, the only people who RSVP'd were Corey and Amanda. So I was surprised, frankly, that they went from that to the
Being
stage.
able to bring so many people in. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, and talk about, okay, I need you to finish this because when you and I first connected, Lisa, my favorite story to this day, you are so badass. I asked you, how much money does Amanda owe you? Now finish the story about the check. And you said she owes me $0, and here's why.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, she doesn't owe me anything. Am I going to tell this story,
Go ahead.
Nancy?
Oh, you must. You must. You're the hero of everything with this story.
I'm just going to tell you that before I ghosted her, and I knew I was going to ghost her, I wanted to give her the opportunity to pay me back because she promised she would. And it wasn't because I wanted the money back. It's just that the principle that these people had driven us to the abyss of emotional drain for a year with all their drama, with all their lies. And I thought, she's not going to get my money too. So she called me. I already knew I was going to ghost her. And she called me and I said, so this was like a month later. She said her parents are going to pay me in a week. I wasn't going to ask her. And it was about a month later. And I said, when are your parents going to pay me back the money they owe? You owe me. And I said it really firm, like really not even warmly. And she said, I said, can you get that to me today? And surprisingly, she told me she was in the hospital. And I asked her, so what time are you going to be out of the hospital? And she told me what time. And I just, the thought of her was just so revolting to me at this point. I went and I put my car in the garage. I told her I may not be home, so please put it in the garage. And, or please put it in the mailbox, which was at the street. I put my car in the garage. And about the time she said she thought she'd be by, she actually came by and she put it in the mailbox, drove away. As soon as she drove away, I took her check to her bank and I cashed it. I think I'm the only one. I think I am the only person who she paid back.
Yeah.
I bet she thought you were going to be friends again after that. That was her
she thought
ticket in.
Yeah, that was it too. I think she thought everything was fine. And then as soon as I cashed her check, I wasn't going to take it to my bank. I thought it was going to bounce, actually. To be honest, I didn't think there was going to be funds in the account, but it was the first of the month. So I think that was the timing. Anyway, as soon as that check cashed, I blocked her on Facebook. We didn't have Instagram. Facebook on mine and Steve's, and on my cell phone, but I could not block her on my landline. But that's when I ghosted her. Then she kept calling and calling and calling. And then she's getting a hold of my niece, saying she's pregnant and they're going to ask us to be godparents. So gross. Sorry.
And that check came into play because I have the check. I have the canceled, the check that went through, and that was handed over to federal authorities because it gave a bank account information that they were able to utilize to trace money. So the fact that we were able to get that back through Lisa and Steve.
Lisa, hero again.
I tracked it down through my bank. Yeah.
Well, but it did help because we learned as we went on, and you learn a little bit more about it in the docuseries too. Is anything that could be traced or figured out was really important. And one of the things, in order to trace the money coming in from the Support Amanda, they needed to bank account numbers and stuff. And so on Lisa's check was the same account that they would deposit money into.
Oh my God.
From the Support Amanda. So it was very helpful.
Nancy, Drew is
No,
right. Oh my gosh. That was, I just about lost it when you told me that story.
I
I was
know
so thrilled that one person at least was able to recoup a portion of the harm that she can, there's nothing she can do that could ever repair the emotional stress that she put you guys under and the specific way. I mean, we talked about this last week, how they told Jessa she would need to give bone marrow, just things like
yeah,
that where it wasn't related directly to an ask for money. Everyone was already feeling sad for them, like why this extra level of trying to get people.
yeah,
I felt really bad for Jessa. I really did. She was so sweet. And I felt really bad that she was in the clutches of these people. But she, at that time when I was, friends with them, she was spending a lot of time with her mother. And so, I did know that I had that feeling of comfort that she wasn't just with these scammers. And she was, in her mom's school district at that point. Is that okay that I said that?
yeah. Of course, people don't worry
I
about
was
it.
stuck for Nancy, but it was and the one thing I will say, she used to always talk so badly about Alita. And I remember being kind of surprised because she talked so badly. She was such a terrible mother, didn't get her to school. But I do remember on Halloween, Alita and Jamie were at the school to see Jessa in the parade. And that was another one of those kind of moments we're kind of questioning, because I'm thinking, she's such a terrible mother. She's here. She brought her daughter. They're here for the parade.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Lisa got a lot of that from them too. Just how terrible Alita was. She didn't know Alita. She had no idea. She's just, and that was a part of the game plan with them as well. Is that they just always spoke terribly about Alita. Um, and so again, Lisa would tell me that type of stuff really early on, and that's what prompted me to look for Alita, to see who is this woman, and
Who is this
what did she,
awful woman?
yeah, just what is, how does she feel about them, because again, um I'm gathering the information from Lisa, and I'm trying to figure out, is Lisa telling me the truth, right? I mean, I don't want to have to doubt her, but I do have to kind of figure out, where is this all coming from? And so much of what she was telling me in time, I was able to back up. Um, for everything from the check to things with Alita, and Corey telling Steve that Amanda had 4 months to live in 2010 or 11. There were other people. There was another person present there that I was able to speak to as well. I mean,
Yes.
we won't get into to them and stuff, but you know, as much as Lisa and Steve were, so I could trust what they were telling me, I also needed to check that out, and there were others there.
So did anybody else? Were you the only one, Lisa, that caught round two? Does that make sense? Or weren't,
No, they were
how
round
many people
one.
did they talk about round one? But you know what I mean? How Lisa saw round two and was like, wait a minute, she said she had cancer 3 years earlier. Was anybody else? I mean, how big of
they
a
weren't.
scam was it round one?
Well,
I don't.
round one, it was just me,
Mhm.
and they didn't, like I said, they were new to the school, but they were only there for about 2 months, and so they didn't really connect with other families except for at a party at our house or something. They chat with people and so forth, but we didn't have any friends in common. Only my niece. My niece kind of was friends with her on Facebook for a while, just because she'd watch her and she'd say, "Auntie, are you sure she doesn't have cancer? She's bald now." And I'd say, "She doesn't have cancer. She doesn't have cancer." And she'd say, "I know, I know she's weird, but are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." Even my husband was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "I am so sure." But anyway, so yeah, none of my friends
Yeah,
had a
they.
connection with her.
I think Lisa explained in episode 2 also about, you know they had known them for several months before Amanda just came out and said, "Oh, I have stage 4 cancer also," because they had done participated at a fundraiser for someone locally. She was telling Amanda about it, and then the next day, Amanda starts telling Lisa, like, "Oh, I have it too." Which is, if you think about it, you've known someone for how many months,
Yeah.
and it didn't come up before. It
And I
just
talked
seems
to her.
strange.
We talked all the
Yeah,
time. She
yeah,
came over. I'd pick up Jessica from school. She'd be at our house. She'd come over to pick her up. And everything was fine, always smiling and happy. And then all of a sudden, this like 2 months into our friendship, I thought that was unusual, especially the timing. And my first thought was, uh, yeah, it was kind of just interesting that she said that.
yeah.
And then, but I felt bad for her, and I did believe her, and it was one of those moments again, like I say, you look back and you're like, okay, that's another one of those stories. But I did believe her. Why would I doubt that? And I did feel really bad, and I felt really sad for her. I was, there were so many times I would just cry thinking about her and how positive she was considering her awful situation. She didn't think she was going to have children. And, she's 24 years old, I think, 25 maybe. And,
Yeah, they laid it on thick.
oh yeah, and they love kids so much. I mean, she really loved children, and she said, I don't think I'm going to be able to have children. And so, yeah, I felt really bad for her, really, really bad. And I wanted to help as much as I could. And
So do you think basically she found out you were talking about the fundraiser that raised over $100,000? Do you think she went home that night and her and Corey were like, aha,
do I
I
think,
do.
okay, do I think
do you
so?
think?
I
Yeah.
do think so, yes. I think they did. Do I know for sure? I don't, but I think they did.
Because that, I mean, then the next day they shared that news.
I
It
always
was
saw
almost,
I saw her as the mastermind, though, for me
yeah.
personally. I saw her as the mastermind, and I saw him just doing what she said.
Hmm,
She'd always she'd always give him a certain look, and he knew how he had to respond.
Mhm.
interesting. And then you knew before Steve, and because Steve also, if you think about it, Steve had the personal connection with his wife, and it's really something to say, I know 100% sure she's faking cancer. Like it takes a lot to have that confidence level. And so I can also see why, because of his personal experience, it took him a little longer to come around to the idea.
Yeah,
Well,
he
yeah.
he trusted
He
Lisa.
said,
I love the way.
Lisa, I stood up for this guy at his wedding. He's not going to do that
Yes.
to us. Like, how could he do that? I stood there for him. He knows my wife died of cancer, my first wife. Of course, he can't do that. How could he do that? He said, he's doing that. They're doing it together. That was the thing that was even worse, is that I felt like our whole relationship was a big fat lie and a big fat scam. And it was all about what they could get from us. What is it that they wanted? I think they're trying to figure it out exactly what it was. Um but yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about like what do you think, how has it affected you, besides obviously thank God you got your money back. I'm so proud of you for
Well,
that.
that
But
was that's a small thing to get. That's a small thing. It's far worse to be able to be watching this going on and not be able to do anything. That's really hard. And it's, Nancy was a needle in a haystack. And I say that was just such a, so the chances of that were 1 in a million, that I find this person who was willing to stick with it for all those years. Like, most people maybe look at that and think, well, that's a lot. Nancy literally, she was unbelievable. And we always thought it was going to happen so much faster. There was times that I was like, I think I'm going to give up, Nancy. You can't give up, though, because there's another blog. And the thing I told you, I believe, is that it would be like, oh, Scamanda has another blog, because we called her Scamanda. And I think Nancy I think she coined that term, but we referred to her as Scamanda when we talked about her. And for years, because it's like, oh, there's another blog. That's what it is. Oh my gosh, can you believe what she's saying now? And someone's gonna see that, someone's
Yeah.
gonna figure this one out, and Just
How long was it from, I mean, did you ever really have a moment of she's been caught, this is going to stop? Was that when she was sentenced, both of you?
well, there were lots of times. I mean, I
Yeah.
think when Nancy told me that Detective Martinez reached out to her, I said, "That's it, she's done," you know. And then,
Yeah,
oh no,
each time it moved a little bit, we were like, okay, this is going to happen now. This is going to happen, and it just takes time. I mean, they were doing their own investigation, and you'll learn about that in the coming up episodes. Really, they all start to talk about that, the detective and Agent Lee. So you'll learn a lot more.
How many years after you got the tip was she sentenced? Do you know off the top
Yeah.
of your head?
So Lisa reached out to me in 2015. Um, she pled guilty, changed her plea to guilty in 2021, and then at the end of 2021, and then she was sentenced in 2022, May of 2022.
What is that, 6 years that you watched her?
Yeah, well, from 2015, she was indicted, or the complaint was filed, was during COVID in 2020. So from 15 to 25 years until she was charged. Yeah.
And you know what? I think what you're saying that I don't think people fully grasp, Lisa, is you are watching this knowing how hurt you and Steve were from her,
Yeah.
not just the money, but the tales that she was spinning and the gut, emotional abuse that she's inflicting. So to watch then her get such a huge platform and stage and to continue this and to feel like you can't do anything to stop it is hard to put into words how frustrating that is.
well, I wasn't thinking about myself and my past. I was glad to be rid of them. But it was very painful to watch what they were doing to other people and good people. And I mean,
Yeah.
there
I mean, it
were,
was a whole community. It was to sit back and
uh,
watch that. It's disgusting on one hand, like it angers you, then you feel sorry for like so. Even though she's watching it, knowing she doesn't have cancer, it's a painful thing to watch.
right. I
What
And
do
remember,
you
she saw like the times I would reach out, I would to others, to try and kind of like say, okay, let me poke a little bit, let me see if I can kind of get a warning out there. And Lisa and I talked a lot all the time, and she said, well, how did that go? I was like, well, they're not ready to hear me yet. No one's ready to hear. And she was like, oh my God, you think that somebody would? It's like, no, they were seeing, miracles. They were seeing tons of photographs, right? I think I love in episode 2 you get to see the party at the house and everything that the recre and the photographs that Lisa had. I mean, it was really cool to bring that to life and see what it was like. I mean, you can see they just were really a part of that community.
well, they were
So
really good friends with us. And they weren't really, like I said, they weren't really in our community because they weren't,
they didn't live right, but
they'd
I mean,
moved.
like you would watch the community that they were part of
Oh,
once it got to the
that
other
watching
side.
what they,
Yeah.
oh, I couldn't believe. And when I saw just the other day, when I saw the pastor refer to Amanda as the queen of this house, this is a church. He was actually he was actually putting her on the same level as as the mother of the Lord, and they were venerating her. It was really hard to see.
she was like their perfect story that my pastor at church, I remember him saying, what when they do these faith healings, and if you're the person that's being prayed for and then they're done and you weren't healed, like, how does that feel? You failed. But she could make herself heal. If
Mhm.
they prayed for a remission, she could be that because
Right.
she was writing the
Yep.
story. So
And
she could give them anything
They
that,
hoped
they
for.
they hoped for and
Yeah.
prayed for.
and I would,
And
Yeah.
the most ironic thing to me actually is that the people, I've heard stories of just people crying, praying for her, just like pleading with the Lord for her to be healed from cancer and to live. And their prayers came true.
Hmm.
She's alive and she doesn't have cancer. But
that's a good way to put it. But all these people who are suffering with cancer, and they're seeing this and they're thinking, she's making it look so easy, and all these people who really have this disease, and that really bothered me a lot
Yeah.
to see that, and just to see all that. And
And
when
all the
when
time and resources she drained from others in the community
exactly,
was a
and when
lot.
she put out that fight song video, that was my only opportunity to warn people, because I could do that anonymously. Thumbs down doesn't say who did it. So it was just kind of a way for people to see, they see these thumbs down, like, oh, if they're maybe questioning, there's other people who are questioning. She kind of noticed that she stopped promoting that really quickly after the thumbs down the numbers kept going higher.
I know that sounds like something, I love that Lisa did that. I love it. But the idea, and I think what Lisa, by doing that, and I didn't think of it at a time when she was like, I gave it a thumbs down. I was like, oh, okay. But then I realized, like, oh, you're giving a person who's dying with cancer, who just made this spectacular music video, a thumbs down. And I went, oh, that really is going to resonate in the community of the church. Like, everybody's like watching this video, and then they start seeing thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. It's like, I'm sure they're thinking, who would do that? Like, how horrible.
They don't believe you.
So
That's why.
I understand her thoughts behind that. Like, well, very would start people thinking, like, wait, why don't people like her? What's wrong here? So I thought that very smart. I would not have thought to give it the old thumbs down.
It was like the only time you kind of had access to edit her story at all.
It was
And
the only power I
Right.
had. It was the only way I could warn people without being the bad person. And, thank God for Nancy Moscatiello, though. I just think, someone just said, Nancy doesn't quit. Nancy does not quit. No, she's one of the most amazing women I have ever met in my life. People I have ever met in my life. And I feel really fortunate to call her my friend, and as well as Alita. So I have, these two really amazing friendships that came out of this. That was really a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
it's a very unique bonding experience. Like,
Yeah. Well, it was a long time, and that I was kind of this go between it, because I wouldn't tell Alita either, how I found out about it or who talked to me about it. So they both really had to just trust I would do everything I could. I couldn't make promises that anything would come of it to get eyes on Amanda, because that's really what it became about at that point. It was so egregious what she was doing. It was like, okay, let's concentrate on getting eyes on her, because this has to stop. And if I can ever tell the story someday, great. But right now, like, there's a child involved, or several children at this point, and yeah. So there were things that, with Lisa and I speaking quite often, and then once I started talking to Alita, we could build upon it. And yeah, it was a unique group effort for sure, which is really fun.
And it was shocking too when I found this blog these years later that they had full custody of Jessa, because I was stunned, because her mother seemed to have, when we were friends, her mother had custody of her. She had the school district. She got to see her, I think it was at least 50-50, or is 50-50. So seeing that and knowing that Jessa was with those people was really hard to see. Really, really hard to see.
somebody just asked, have any of her victims been able to tell her to F off to her face? Well, that does bring the question of, if you had the opportunity to say anything to her today, would you? Is there anything that you would say to her?
No.
No.
I have nothing to say. Now, I ghosted her a long time ago. I have nothing to say. I said something in court at the
Oh, you did?
at the not to her, to the judge, but no.
How about you, Nancy?
No, I mean, at this point, she's not ready to ever see me, talk to me, you know, I don't, you know, this whole thing of the why would she do this? I mean, I feel pretty confident about how I feel of the why. It's twofold. It's attention, but for the most part, it's money. And she wanted, Lisa, Lisa said it really well, that she wanted to be Alita. She wanted what Alita had. And there was so much nastiness behind the scenes of what they were doing to Alita that that's not that's not an attention thing. That's not a, you know, that you know what you're doing with that. She wanted to destroy everything that Alita had. She wanted it, and she wanted to destroy her, take her
I
kid. I mean,
don't
like,
I don't
I know that
totally
sounds like everyone's
understand
like,
that.
there must be something there. There was really no there there. I mean, she was just really vindictive.
And
And
she actually,
and
when I
she
first met, oh, sorry, I'll let,
no, good.
when I met Alita, it was deja vu because Alita really is the person that Amanda pretended to be. She is that sweet person. She is that loving, warm, kind, innocent soul.
Mhm.
She is that person. And I really actually couldn't believe it. She was impersonating Alita, in my humble opinion.
Mhm.
Nancy, were you going to say something else?
No, that's it's good. And I'm trying to think of what else Lisa was involved in with episode 2, if we have questions or
Well, I
anything
do
like
have a
that.
question of that I received of, has this experience made you less trusting of people? Or like how have you moved forward after experiencing something so bizarre and awful?
No, I'm not less trusting of people. I want to think the best of people until they show me otherwise. I have a good, I trust my instincts more than I did before, but I want to think the best of people. I don't want to say that that's ruined anything for me.
Hmm. How about you, Nancy? I mean, you work in true crime. Has
I
that ever
mean, yeah, I have way too much baggage of the work that I've done that I don't trust a lot of people. I think, well, and you know, it is what it is. But I mean, I think that's one of the reasons when Lisa reached out, it it didn't shock me, right? I was like, huh, okay, that's what I was looking for. Because I remember I put this post out saying I'm looking for scamming stories, possibly someone faking kids, you know, someone faking cancer, that type of thing. Um, that was the hope. And so when Lisa reached out, I was like, okay, wow, I know people are doing this. And I had seen those type of stories before. And um, they usually kind of end at the local level, or very like the local sheriff or somebody will say, hey, knock it off. Like, why are you doing this? Stop doing this. And people stop. Um, and I think, you know, for Lisa's point, like that's what I think she assumed also. She tried reaching out to like tip lines or police, and I think a DA's office. Like she did legwork to try and say, what do I do with this? Like, I hello, you know, this is going on. And I think it's not a common thing, so they don't necessarily like, oh, okay, this will go away on its own. I just think they don't. I think having Scamanda out there now, like the people will take this way more seriously, because I do think it's there's that I can't the amount of um messages and emails I'm getting from people that's saying, oh, I've got another one and another one and another one, like hundreds of people that are doing this, that people are like, I know they're doing this. There's no like, and their eyes are being opened since, you know, watching and listening to the show.
wow.
I had a friend yesterday at lunch told me, you know, after seeing Scamanda, I realized there's this person in our friend group who um, is doing this, and she's going to these treatments by herself. She doesn't want anyone going. She's single. She's driving herself there, driving herself home. And she said, I, you know, I've been kind of suspicious, but after seeing Scamanda, I think, you know, so I think maybe a lot of people are going to look at situations that don't make sense
Yeah.
Mm. And
because you wouldn't
question
normally
things
think.
that, because a cancer patient would be untouchable in terms of someone calling them a liar. So it's basically kind of
Yeah.
planted a seed that you can think about it, question it, take notes. And I loved what you did, Lisa. My grandma always said if someone lies about one thing, they lie about many things. And so, to your point, where you compiled a list of all of the discrepancies, I thought that was very sharp.
Yeah, no, Lisa did her homework, man. When she reached out to me, there was a lot of information in that first email. And then we did the first email was just kind of to give me some broad strokes with some links to look at, and then she followed up. I said, okay, let me look at all this, and she followed up with another email with even more information, kind of a little bit more about her background. And I think that first time, Lisa, you reached the first email didn't get into how you knew, if I remember right,
Right.
that you knew them 2 years prior. Like that once we kind of started a rapport, then she was like, okay, if we're going to do this now, I'm going to tell you why and how. And we had a lengthy talk.
I was so scared of that call. Someone asked me, were you afraid to go to the judge? Were you afraid to face her? Were you afraid to go to the grand jury? Were you afraid to go see the judge? No, I wasn't afraid of those things. I was terrified of when I reached out to Nancy, and I didn't want to give too much information what I had. I didn't want to put it all in writing and all this stuff. And I wanted to fill out the situation before I kind of got into the details of it. And when she got back to me and said, can you be on a call with 5 people, 2 attorneys and some other producers? Ooh.
Well, yeah, it wasn't to scare you by any means, but we had a couple of discussions, and then it was like, okay, for me, it's like, we're going to have this. I want to be transparent about where I was working, who I work with, the hands she would be in. These are the folks that are going to be watching what I'm doing to make sure I'm doing things properly. And I wanted to assure her and that, it's going to be handled in a professional way. And, and I wanted her to ask questions because she did not want to be, put out there by any chance, and so we wanted to make sure that was protected properly. And because it was a tough thing to come forward.
Well, once I did it, I think I was so scared. Nancy was so transparent, like you said. You said there's going to be some attorneys on this call, and which made me more trusting of the process. But what was terrifying is knowing it's actually really starting. We really are doing something, and it's not like I just told the police they're, and they're going to keep anything could happen here. It's really starting. So that was scary. But I felt in safe hands. I felt that I trusted Nancy really quickly, and she did not disappoint. She's been absolutely amazing.
Yes.
It's been a ride, that's for sure.
Although I have to say, it feels quite satisfying now, but knowing that she's going to be out soon do you think she's going to repeat this?
Yeah. Well, I say, yeah. If she's getting any, when I say help, I don't know what that help looks like. I'm sure there's, you have to remember when she took the plea deal and when not plea deal, but when she changed the plea and went in front of the judge, there's every opportunity to have mental evaluations and to have your attorneys, talk about all these things that this could be. And she made a point of saying, nope, this is what I did by pleading guilty. She didn't look for an out, or an excuse, so to speak. I mean, she didn't tell everybody she was sorry in the way that I think, it could have been done, but yeah. There's something has to change. I just don't think she's there yet. I mean, she still was doing things in prison, still looking, the paperwork that she filed most recently just shows she hasn't learned anything. So we'll see.
But she said, what did she say? What was her statement? It was like, I accept responsibility and I'm going to try the rest of my life to make this right to the people that I
make this right to everyone.
But then
everyone but Alita and myself and others, right?
I don't think I don't think she's reached out to anybody. I don't think she's tried to make amends. It sounds like her message is really on why she did this is just there's more to the story that you
Right.
don't know. That I really am sick. It's just there's more that you don't understand, kind of a thing, right? Is that
Right.
what you're
Pretty much.
um
That's what you keep hearing. Yeah.
yeah. And then somebody asked, isn't she already out? Can you give an update,
No.
Nancy, on
Yeah, no,
her
she's
whereabouts?
so she's in a like I would let's call it like a step down facility, like a re-entry program. It is still a federal prison facility. It's just not. She was at the one in Texas, and now she's in the one in Southern California, which is in the area where where her parents are. So she'll be there. Um, her sentence is till the end of this December. So it's like I said, it is a. I'm sure it is a program that eventually, while she's there, I don't know. Maybe she can get some mental health therapy, whatever. Maybe that's a part of this. I think they look for work programs. Like all these things start to towards reentry. So she is still in a facility. It's not like a traditional halfway house yet. I think that will happen at some point. I mean, that's the whole point of as you come out of prison to be uh, rehabilitated or to be put back into to society. So
Rehabilitated. I
and
don't know that.
then she has a supervision component after that for 3 years. I believe, and I'd have to go back and read with the judge's orders. I believe no social media, no internet. Like there's very specific things
Hmm,
to her, which makes sense. So.
yeah. Before I let you ladies go, we got to give the people what they want to see. Is it Mr. Much
Oh,
or
Mr.
Mr. Mo?
Munch.
Mr. Munch.
Yes, grab him and hold him up.
You want me to go grab him? Let's see.
Yes.
Hold on.
Oh, of course we do. I think that Nancy's dog and my dog might be related because I also have a scraggly little. Have you ever done a DNA test on him, Nancy? Mr. Munch. It's not from Law and Order. Is that? Oh, that's Detective Munch. Oh, is that why? Nancy, why is he named Mr. Munch?
Oh,
Hello, Mr. Munch.
he's so cute.
Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Munch.
Oh, he came from a rescue, and they had a name of him called Munchkin Dream, and that was not doing it for us. So right, and he had two little.
Munchkin.
He's only got one little tooth left, but he had the two that would stick out at one. Right, Mr. Munch.
God
So
bless him. Oh,
I'm
he's
so
cute.
I know.
glad he made
I thought it was
Savannah.
funny that he's in the B-roll all throughout, which was very funny.
I loved his face there. Any closing thoughts, either of you ladies?
No, I think we're pretty. I mean, we talked about Lisa's part in part two, and I think next week we'll cover more if people want us to, and um, I'm happy to talk. But if there's any other things from part two that people wanted to know about, oh, you know what I want to say? I was very excited in part two where we learned a little bit about Corey through Jack. Jack York was someone that from very early on I was trying to find and talk to and leave messages for, and I never heard back. And then the team on the docuseries, I said, hey, this is someone you guys could try, we should, and one of the producers there was able to talk with him, and he is just such a nice man and so kind, and it really kind of helped learning a little bit more about Corey's background, I think too, and I like the way he painted that picture, so we can get to know a little bit more about him. I found that interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a big question.
I appreciate that too. I remember that Corey's father had died. He had a flag, one of those military flags, over his fireplace, and it was from his father. I remember that, but I didn't know any really details
that
happened. I really, really love Jamie. Yeah, I love Alita too. I love them both. But those beautiful little sweet pictures of Jamie and how absolutely when she's laying on the floor right next to Corey, when she's in the hospital, I mean, it was so touching, Alita. That was really well done. I thought
Yeah.
it was really well done.
And that kind of, you make the point too. And I know that, Lisa, you were told the same thing, the whole one night stand, that,
Oh yeah.
which
Oh
is
yeah.
just horrible.
Yeah.
They were just, but at least it was told the same thing. And then this was again another thing we heard later on as I started talking with people.
Is there
So,
any chance Corey will be indicted?
that's a good question. I think not, because of the statutes, and how long it's been, and the way the case was handled. And you'll learn a little bit more about that in the next couple of episodes. But it doesn't seem that way, though. Um, you know,
It just seems like he kind of got away scot-free, and now, I mean, I think I saw a picture of him. Does he have a beard now? He looks different, so people might not realize who he is.
I think it will follow.
You do.
I do.
And they're not together anymore. Are they officially divorced, or he just filed papers?
I believe they are now officially. Yes,
Interesting.
they filed in January 2024. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I think this has been wonderful to hear the additional stories, a little bit more behind, what was just shown on the episode. So thank you both. You're both such wonderful, strong women that I adore and look up to. So thank you for doing
Thanks for
what you
having us.
did
Thanks
to
for
stop
having us.
Until
the
next week.
emotional abuse. Yes, until next week. Thank you. We did it. We figured out the live.
We did it. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Good night,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.